Someone out there is playing dirty with you right now. They smile in your face and sharpen knives behind your back. They twist your words, steal your energy, and test your patience because they think you won't do anything about it. They think you're soft. They think you're blind. They think you're the kind of person who will just take it and move on. But you clicked on this video for a reason. Something inside you already shifted. You're not here to complain. You're not here to cry about fairness. You're here because you've decided that the old version of you, the version that got played, that got blindsided, that got disrespected, dies today. What I'm about to give you are 10 mental tricks drawn from the coldest minds in history. Machiavelli didn't write for the weak. He wrote for those willing to see the world as it truly is, not as they wish it were. This is not about revenge. This is about reconstruction. By the end of this video, you will think differently, move differently, and respond to betrayal with a precision so calm it terrifies the people who wronged you. So sit down, lock in, and pay attention. Class is in session. Trick number 1, become unreadable. The first trick is the foundation of everything that follows, and if you get this one right, the rest becomes almost effortless. Become unreadable. Right now, the people who play dirty with you have one massive advantage. They can see right through you. They know when you're angry because your face shows it. They know when you're hurt because your voice cracks. They know when you're desperate because you over-explain yourself. And every single one of those reactions is a gift you hand them on a silver platter. Machiavelli understood something most people never will. The man who can be read can be led. Your emotions are data, and the moment you leak them freely, you become a puppet on strings you didn't even know existed. So here is what you do, starting today. You train yourself to become a wall, not cold for the sake of being cold, but controlled for the sake of being free. When someone insults you, you don't flinch. When someone provokes you, your expression stays still like stone. When someone tries to bait you into reacting, you look at them the way a lion looks at an insect, with total disinterest. This isn't about faking it. This is about building a real internal fortress where no one gets access unless you grant it. Practice this in small moments first. When someone cuts you off in conversation, pause instead of interrupting back. When someone disrespects you in a group, hold eye contact and say nothing. Let the silence do the work. You'll notice something terrifying happen. People start to fear what they can't read. They lose confidence. They second-guess themselves. They start adjusting their behavior around you because they no longer know what moves you, and that is where your power begins. The moment you become emotionally invisible, you become strategically invincible. No one can fight a man they cannot figure out. No one can break someone who shows them absolutely nothing to break. Trick number 2, let them overplay their hand. Most people, the moment they realize someone is playing dirty with them, make the same fatal mistake. They react instantly. They confront too early. They show their cards before the game is even halfway through. And in doing so, they lose the single most powerful advantage they could ever hold: time. Machiavelli wrote that the wise man watches while others act, because in action, people reveal their true nature, their weaknesses, and their desperation. This is the second trick, and it requires something most people don't have: the discipline to wait. When someone is scheming against you, do not rush to stop them. Let them move. Let them talk. Let them build their little strategy with full confidence that you are unaware, because here is what happens when you do nothing. They get comfortable, and comfortable people get sloppy. They start telling other people what they're doing. They start making bold moves because they assume you're asleep. They begin overplaying their hand, reaching further and further until their entire strategy is exposed in broad daylight for you to study, map, and dismantle piece by piece. Patience, in this context, is not passivity. It is predatory. Think of it like a chess game. The amateur wants to attack on the second move. The grandmaster waits 30 moves, quietly positioning every piece until the opponent is boxed in before they even realize the trap was set 12 moves ago. That is the energy you bring to every situation where someone plays dirty with you. You do not rush. You do not panic. You watch. You gather. You let them dig their own grave with a shovel they chose themselves. And when they've gone far enough, when they've exposed every angle and used every trick they had, that is when you move. Once, decisively, and with a force they never saw coming because they were too busy thinking you weren't paying attention. Patience is not weakness. Patience is the predator's greatest disguise. Trick number 3, mirror their energy, then withdraw it. This trick is psychological warfare in its purest form, and when executed correctly, it will leave the other person questioning their own reality. Here is how it works. When someone plays dirty with you, you don't fight them, you mirror them. You match their energy with surgical precision. If they're friendly, you become friendly. If they're cold, you become cold. If they give you attention, you give them attention. You become their reflection, and without realizing it, they start to feel understood by you. They start to feel connected. They start to believe they have a hold on you, and that is exactly where you want them. Attached. Because the real weapon here is not the mirror. It is what comes after, the withdrawal. Once they've grown used to your energy, once they've started depending on the rhythm you created between you and them, you pull it all away without a single word of explanation. No fight, no drama, no announcement. You simply become unavailable, distant, unreachable. And this is where their mind starts to collapse. Machiavelli knew that people don't value what they have. They value what they've lost. When you withdraw your energy from someone who has grown comfortable receiving it, you create a vacuum inside their mind that they cannot fill with logic. They start replaying every interaction. They start wondering what they did wrong. They start chasing you, not because you asked them to, but because the absence of your presence becomes louder than anything you could have ever said. This trick works because it targets the deepest human vulnerability, the fear of loss. You are not manipulating them with cruelty. You are simply giving them the experience of losing someone they underestimated. And that experience haunts people in ways that no argument, no confrontation, and no act of revenge ever could. You don't need to raise your voice when your silence can rearrange someone's entire mind. Trick number 4, control the frame, control the game. Every interaction you have with another human being takes place inside a frame. A frame is the invisible structure that determines who holds the power, who is reacting, and who is leading. Most people never think about this. They walk into conversations, arguments, and confrontations completely unaware that the frame has already been set, and usually not by them. This is why they lose. When someone plays dirty with you, the very first thing they do is establish a frame that benefits them. They frame you as the problem. They frame themselves as the victim. They frame the situation so that no matter what you say, you sound defensive, desperate, or guilty. And the moment you accept that frame, the moment you start explaining yourself inside their narrative, you have already lost the war. Machiavelli understood that power does not belong to the strongest. It belongs to the one who defines the battlefield. So here is what you do. You never argue inside someone else's frame, ever. When someone accuses you of something to throw you off balance, you don't defend, you reframe. You shift the entire conversation onto your terms. If they say you're being selfish, you don't explain why you're not. You calmly ask them why they feel entitled to your energy in the first place. If they say you've changed, you don't apologize. You tell them that growth sometimes looks like betrayal to people who benefited from you staying small. Do you see what's happening here? You're not reacting, you're redirecting. You are taking their arrow out of the air and sending it back with twice the force. The person who controls the frame controls the emotional direction of every exchange, and the person who controls the emotional direction controls the outcome. Stop fighting inside cages other people build for you. Build your own frame, stand inside it, and force the world to meet you there. The man who defines the game never loses it. Trick number 5. Make your silence louder than their noise. There is a weapon that most people are terrified to use because it feels like doing nothing. But in the hands of someone who truly understands power, it becomes the most devastating tool in the entire arsenal. That weapon is silence. When someone plays dirty with you, they are expecting a reaction. They want you to argue. They want you to defend yourself. They want you to raise your voice so they can point at you and say, "Look, he's out of control." Every word you throw back at them is fuel for their fire. But silence, real, intentional, bone-chilling silence takes all that fuel away and leaves them standing in front of a flame that has nothing left to burn. Machiavelli observed that men who speak too much reveal their fears, while men who say nothing reveal their power. When someone attacks you with words and you respond with total stillness, something shifts in the room that everyone can feel. The attacker suddenly looks desperate. Their words start echoing back at them. The audience, if there is one, starts questioning why you're so calm and why they're so loud. You become the mountain and they become the wind screaming against something that will never move. But let me be clear, this is not about being passive. This is about choosing your silence the way a sniper chooses his moment. You are not quiet because you have nothing to say. You are quiet because you understand that everything you say can and will be used to build a case against you by people who already decided you were the enemy before the conversation started. So you give them nothing. You let them rant. You let them accuse. You let them fill the air with desperation while you sit there with a stillness that communicates one single message: I am not threatened by you. And there is nothing more terrifying to a manipulator than a person they cannot provoke. Your silence is not surrender. Your silence is a statement. It says, I see your game, I understand your moves, and I have already decided that you are not worth my words. That silence will follow them home. It will keep them awake. It will do more damage than anything you could have ever said. Trick number 6, expose nothing, observe everything. Most people destroy themselves not because they are weak, but because they talk too much. They hand out personal information like free samples at a grocery store. They tell people their plans before they execute them. They share their insecurities with people who haven't earned the right to know them. And then they wonder why those same people use everything against them when the time comes. Machiavelli warned that every man is a potential enemy, and the information you give freely today becomes the blade that cuts you tomorrow. This is not paranoia. This is awareness. The 6th trick is brutally simple. Expose nothing and observe everything. From this moment forward, you operate like an intelligence agent in every room you enter. You watch body language. You listen not just to what people say, but to what they avoid saying. You notice who speaks about others behind their backs, because those same mouths will carry your name the moment you leave the room. You study patterns. You track inconsistencies. You remember details that other people forget they ever mentioned. And while you are doing all of this, you give away absolutely nothing about yourself that could ever be weaponized. When someone asks you personal questions, you answer with vague warmth that reveals nothing. When someone pushes for details about your plans, your finances, your relationships, you redirect the conversation with a smile and a question about them. People love talking about themselves, and every word they say is another file in your mental cabinet that you store for a moment you may or may not ever need. Information is the currency of power. The man who holds the most information while revealing the least controls the board without ever making an obvious move. You don't need to be loud. You don't need to be aggressive. You just need to be the person in the room who sees everything and says nothing. While everyone else is performing, you are collecting. While everyone else is reacting, you are recording. And when the day comes that someone tries to play dirty with you, you will already know their strategy before they execute it, because you were studying them long before they ever thought to study you. Trick number 7. Raise your value until they can't afford to lose you. There is a level of power that has nothing to do with aggression, manipulation, or mind games. It is the kind of power that comes from being so valuable that the people who once played dirty with you start losing sleep over the possibility of being cut out of your life. This is the 7th trick, and it is the most quietly brutal of them all. Raise your value until they simply cannot afford to lose you. Machiavelli wrote that a prince who is feared is safe, but a prince who is indispensable is untouchable. Most people make the mistake of chasing revenge when they've been wronged. They want to hurt the person back. They want to expose them, humiliate them, make them feel what they felt. But revenge is a low-level game played by people who have nothing better to build. The real response to someone playing dirty with you is not to destroy them. It is to become so powerful that their betrayal looks like the dumbest decision they ever made. Start building yourself in silence. Get in better shape. learn new skills, multiply your income, expand your network, sharpen your mind with books, discipline, and relentless focus. Do not announce it. Do not post about it. Just let the results scream on your behalf. Because here is what happens when you rise. The same people who played you start watching you from a distance, with regret sitting heavy on their chest. They start reaching out with disguised apologies. They start trying to re-enter your circle because they realize the person they discarded has become someone they now need. And that is when you hold the ultimate card. Not revenge, not anger, choice. You get to decide if they deserve access to the new version of you. And most of the time, they don't. Your growth is not a message to them. Your growth is a monument to yourself. But it just so happens that the tallest monuments cast the longest shadows, and those shadows fall directly on the people who once thought they could bury you. Trick number 8. Use strategic unpredictability. There is one type of person that no manipulator, no schemer, and no dirty player can ever truly defeat. The person they cannot predict. Think about it. Every strategy, every scheme, every dirty trick someone pulls on you is built on one assumption, that they know how you will respond. They insult you because they expect you to get angry. They ignore you because they expect you to chase. They spread lies about you because they expect you to defend yourself publicly. Every move they make is calculated based on a version of you that they think they understand. So what happens when that version no longer exists? What happens when you become someone they cannot map, cannot calculate, and cannot prepare for? Machiavelli wrote that the man who varies his methods according to the times will prosper, but the man who remains rigid will be destroyed. This is the 8th trick, strategic unpredictability. From this point forward, you stop being consistent in the way others expect. When they expect anger, you respond with laughter. When they expect you to leave, you stay with a calm that unsettles the entire room. When they expect silence, you speak with a precision so sharp it cuts the conversation in half. You are not chaotic. You are calculated. There is a difference between being random and being unpredictable. A random person is out of control. An unpredictable person is in total control. They simply refuse to let anyone else access the pattern. This does something devastating to the people playing dirty with you. It freezes them. They can no longer plan 3 moves ahead because they have no idea what your next move even looks like. They start hesitating. They start overthinking. They start making mistakes because the mental model they built of you has collapsed entirely. And while they are scrambling to figure out who you've become, you are already 10 steps ahead, operating in a space they didn't even know existed. Predictability is a prison. The man who cannot be anticipated cannot be controlled. Break the pattern, and you break their power over you permanently. Trick number 9. Build alliances they don't see coming. No empire in history was ever built by one man standing alone, and no dirty player was ever defeated by a lone wolf who refused to build a circle. This is the truth that most people miss when they are caught in a battle with someone who plays dirty. They try to fight it solo. They isolate themselves. They keep their pain private and their strategy personal. And while that sounds noble, it is also how people get destroyed quietly without anyone noticing until it's too late. Machiavelli was ruthlessly clear on this. The prince who has no allies has no throne. The 9th trick is about building alliances so quiet and so strategic that by the time your enemy realizes you have support, the walls have already closed around them. But listen carefully. This is not about running to people and complaining about what someone did to you. That is weakness disguised as networking. This is about identifying people who share your values, your standards, and your quiet ambition, and building genuine bonds with them based on mutual respect and mutual benefit. You bring value to their life. They bring value to yours. No begging, no pity, no transaction disguised as friendship. You position yourself as someone worth standing beside, and the right people will naturally gravitate toward you. Now here is why this is devastating to the person playing dirty with you. They assumed you were alone. They assumed that when they attacked you, nobody would stand with you. They assumed they could control the narrative because there was nobody to challenge their version of events. But when they look up and realize that the people around them, their co-workers, their mutual connections, their social circle, have already been won over by your character and your integrity. Their entire strategy collapses from the inside. You didn't have to say a single negative word about them. You didn't have to expose them. Their own behavior did the exposing while your alliances did the protecting. Power is not a solo game. The strongest man in the room is never the loudest. He is the one who has 5 silent allies standing behind him that nobody bothered to notice. Trick number 10. Walk away like you never needed them. Every trick I've given you so far has been about strategy, control, and mental dominance. But this final trick is the one that separates the powerful from the truly untouchable. It is the move that no manipulator, no schemer, and no dirty player has a counter for, walking away like you never needed them in the first place. Most people cannot do this. They stay in toxic situations because they are addicted to the drama. They keep engaging with people who disrespect them because they secretly crave the validation that comes from winning an argument or proving a point. They want the other person to see them, to acknowledge them, to finally admit they were wrong. But that need, that desperate hunger for closure, is the chain that keeps them enslaved to people who don't deserve a single second of their time. Machiavelli wrote that the man who is free from attachment is free from control, and no one in history has ever been controlled by something they were willing to lose. This is the final lesson. When you walk away from someone who played dirty with you, you do not announce it. You do not give a speech. You do not send a long message explaining how they hurt you and why you deserve better. You simply vanish from their life with the same energy a king uses when he steps over something beneath him, without looking down. And here is what makes this so devastating. When you leave without emotion, without explanation, and without a single trace of bitterness, you take all the power with you. The other person is left holding a conversation that has no second voice. They are left with guilt they cannot resolve, questions they cannot answer, and a silence so loud it follows them into every room for months. You didn't yell, you didn't beg, you didn't fight, you just left, and that will haunt them more than anything else you could have ever done. Your absence becomes the loudest statement you've ever made. It tells them that they were never as important as they thought they were. It tells them that your peace is worth more than their presence. It tells them that the version of you they tried to break has already moved on and built something better without them in it. That is cold. That is calculated. That is power in its purest form. Now I want you to do something for me.